Hello, Rise Up Visionaries. I'm Susan May, and I'm here to share my random ramblings on life and anything that goes through my brain to inspire you to tune into your intuition so you can begin your journey of unplugging. So yesterday, I shared a lot about Marisol's reading journey. It's far from complete, of course, because our stories are so extensive, right? And I'm sure there were things I said that maybe she would disagree with, because our perspectives are always a little bit different. And I feel like there was something that I wanted to kind of emphasize from that whole story, and now it's slipping my mind. But overall, I think you guys got the idea, that the idea was the big thing was patience. Oh, I know. I want to emphasize, in case it wasn't clear, that I did no, quote, reading lessons with her. There was no curriculum, no reading class or structured attempt to get her to read. Never. Nothing. So what I described yesterday is exactly what we did over the years, which was basically, read things that she wanted to read. I read aloud to her a lot. She listened to audiobooks, and gradually it became easier for her to the point where she's now a fluent reader who can read at grade level. It's still not as easy for her as maybe for other kids her age or other adults, but she is getting there and she's doing great. So that is Marisol's story. So today I want to talk about our second child, Gerry. Gerry is 12 years old now, so he's just about exactly 3 years younger than Marisol. In fact, he's 3 years and 3 weeks younger. So she turned 3, and exactly 3 weeks later, he was born. Gerry's reading journey could not be more different than Marisol's. They are like polar opposites, which I think is awesome, and just goes to show you just how unique we all are, and also that unschooling works for everyone. The words that come to mind when I think of Gerry's reading journey are mysterious. It was unexpected. It was organic and effortless. Marisol's was also organic, but there was more worry involved because she was getting older and it was still more difficult for her. And reading has been challenging for her. It was not easy. So with Gerry, I asked him for permission again, and I have permission to talk about this. And so I asked him, well, what do you remember? Or what do you remember about learning about reading? And he literally was like, I don't remember anything. I have no idea how it happened, which is what I mean by mysterious. And actually, in our recollection as his parents and Marisol, his sister, older sister, it was almost like, oh my gosh, Gerry's reading. When did that happen? How did that happen? And we think it was when he was about 7 or 8 years old. We're not sure. I do have vague recollections of him starting to ask questions, like when we're driving around in the car, like, hey, mommy, what does that sign say? Or does that say stop? Or, things like that. So I have a vague recollection of that. I also distinctly remember that as a toddler, he did not want me to read to him. And it was very clear, pushing the books away, grabbing them, running away, which led to some mommy guilt because we're supposed to read to our children. But luckily for him, I had already discovered unschooling and, the philosophy of really tuning into your child and what they need. And so I accepted that that's not exactly what he wanted. And so I have never read to him as extensively as I read to Marisol. Isn't that interesting? Because he was the one that learned effortlessly and almost without us knowing. And as he's grown older, I have read to him more. I told you yesterday I started reading Harry Potter to him. I don't remember how old he was now. He's 12 now, so it was probably 2 years ago or something. When he was 9 or 10, we started reading the series, and Marisol finished with him. So this idea of feeling guilty, I think, is really important, because there was a meme that went around about raising children who read is raising thinkers or something like that. And I kind of dissected that in a post or maybe even a blog post, I'll have to see, because I think it's really important to examine ideas. One, I'm not against reading. I love reading. I'm a total book nerd. I was like the kid that had books with her all the time. Read, read, read. That's all I did. So I'm not against reading. What I'm against is putting people into boxes. And not everyone loves reading. Now, some of that could be our education system, right? What we talked about yesterday, like Marisol has retained her love of reading even though it was difficult for her. But I guess the point is that we have a lot of I'm calling book worship, because someone I learned a lot about unschooling called it book worship, Sandra Dodd. And there's a great, I will link to her website about what is book worship. Basically, it's like we think that learning has to happen in a certain way, which when you start examining it, you realize that's not true. Other things about Gerry's like road to literacy, whatever you want to call it, journey, is he does have a distinct memory of a game called Scribble Knots, which my mom was talking about the other day. She remembers doing it with him. It was such a fun game. Like, you had to type in the words to get like images to pop up. And it was a computer game. And he says that helped him learn to spell. And if you spelled words wrong, it came up with options. So then you would see, oh, this is how that, and you could see which word you wanted, almost like autocorrect on your phone. So Scribble Knots was huge in helping him learn to spell. I would say watching videos on YouTube, maybe having, I don't know if we often had the captions on, but video games. I played video games with Gerry like I read to Marisol. We played video games for hours when he was like 5, 6 years old. And often, like in the Mario games, there's storylines. And so I'm sure I read those to him, and I'm sure that made him want to read. The other thing that has made him want to learn to read and to type, which is how he writes, is being online with his online friends. Marisol and Gerry's best friends are in the UK, and they have been friends now for 2.5 or 3.5 years. A long time, years we're talking, where they talk almost every day. And so Gerry learned to type in the chat box. He has learned to type and obviously to read. And he was reading before that, but he is actually a better speller than Marisol. Like, she will ask him how to spell things, and he's just good at it. So how amazing is that? Again, no lessons, no readers, no workbooks, no curriculum for both of my kids. Yet one, what took longer, one happened so effortlessly we didn't even know how it happened. So what have I learned about parenting, about learning and life? I think one of the key things is our expectations. You will notice that I expected Marisol to learn at a young age because she loved stories. She loved me reading to her. And I could read to her for a long time. She had a really long attention span, and she was very verbal. So I expected her to read early. Gerry, I had read all sorts of stories on unschooling websites and things about how boys learn later. So I expected him to learn later. Expected Marisol to learn early, expected Gerry to learn later. The opposite happened. So our expectations are often incorrect. That is one huge lesson I've learned, the difference between expectations and reality. And this is really, really important. When I was a Hypnobabies instructor, we talked all about expectations and beliefs. Okay, so like whatever you expect to happen, that changes your behavior, and your behavior creates your reality and becomes your belief system. So our family, we were lucky, okay? So my expectations really didn't poorly impact my kids, I don't think anyway, and they would agree with me. Because with Marisol, I did expect her to learn early, but I had learned about unschooling. I was very trusting of the process. Also, I really knew how smart she was and how much she loved learning, and that it wasn't like an attitude thing or that she didn't want to read. So that whole trusting process, it worked out. That my expectation was wrong, but I was able to release it. With Gerry, my expectation of him learning later actually took all this pressure off of us. I wasn't even worried about whether he was reading or not because I expected it to not happen. So it was almost like that expectation helped us. But I think the key is to realize, to examine, what are your expectations? What are your beliefs? And are those truth? Okay? So all of these things about learning to read, this discussion about unschooling, remember I told you when I talked about unschooling last week, as a parent, one of the most important things you have to do is deschool. What is deschool? It means you need to unlearn things that really aren't true, okay? And is this not the core of what I'm calling unplugging, right? Unplugging from what we think is big T truth. Unplugging from what we've learned because we've been seeped in this society that sent messages to us and said, this is the truth. This is how things have to be. So this is why I get so passionate about unschooling, and because really unplugging from the mainstream education system, I think all of us can see how important that is. Because we can see people that aren't questioning, who are stuck in this fear-based paradigm because of the messaging they're receiving from corporate press. It's programming them to behave and believe certain things. So, and our children, oh my gosh, I've had so many amazing conversations with Marisol about education in school, and like how kids are just seeped in this culture and then they believe this is what's true. This is really disjointed, but the idea is that if you can unplug from the mainstream education system and take your kids out of that, you are going to see whole worlds open up to you that you didn't even know exist. And so the key to that is to begin questioning. Did you believe that reading needed a reading teacher? Did you believe that you had to buy a reading curriculum? Did you believe that you needed to sit down with your kid and make them say the sounds of the alphabet or sound words out? Did you believe that without all of those things, your kid will not learn to read? So I really, really believe that unplugging from mainstream school, mainstream education, is the basis for our society moving forward in a more positive way. So start thinking about those things that you thought were true and necessary and how they might not be true. And remember my kids, remember their stories, how different they are. Yet the similarities was that we just loved and supported them. We supplied them with books. We read to them when they wanted to be read to. When they were curious about things or wanted to play a game, we helped them and supported them in that way. So I hope these stories are helpful to you. I've had so much fun presenting them to you, and I'm going to get some blogs up on both of these videos in the comments, both things I've written and things that have been written on sandradodd.com. And Marisol, I told you yesterday that I would put up the YouTube videos that she watched, and I have not done that yet, so I'm going to follow up on that. Tony, I see your comment. Thank you. I think your frame rate is better. I'm on my phone, so I'm thinking, I guess I can't go live in our office, which is so bizarre. Our internet is not as good, which is weird because it's wired there, and it did keep saying that. It said frame rate. When I rewatched the video, it seemed like it was okay, but I did notice it cut me off at the end too, like I didn't finish my sign off. So I love you all. I'm excited to keep sharing with you and hearing what your questions are. I'm really grateful to my friend Catherine for asking me to talk about unschooling, because this has just led to more ideas. This morning I had the most amazing conversation with my kiddos about so many things and how they're interrelated. Marisol was talking about just how kids interact online and behaviors that aren't kind, and how she's done things in the past that weren't kind, and she still feels bad about it and she won't do them again. And we talked about drama and how humans get sucked into drama because it's like entertaining and that adrenaline rush. And I told them about different things, and I told them about how I'm just really believe keeping our energy, our vibe, if you will, high is so important, and they really seem to understand it. And then Gerry was telling me all about all these things about space that he knows, and about, he asked me if I believed in aliens, and then he said, he was telling me about the filter, this theory of the filter, which I'd never heard of before, and then he explained to me also like why the universe is expanding, and why there's things that we can see that aren't really there because of the speed of light, and just all this stuff. And so I'm only sharing this with you to show you what it can be like when you unschool your kids. And we don't have these conversations every day. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. There's lots of slow times. There's times where it looks like we're not doing things. I am just like on fire this morning, and every thought is connected, and I'm just really so grateful for all of you, anyone watching, to spend time with me, because time is so valuable, and I want to value your time. So I'm going to sign off now. I think this is long enough. So thanks for watching. Please like my Rise Up with Susan May page on Facebook. You can subscribe on YouTube also. More importantly, please share anything that inspires you so the good energy and love begins to spread like wildfire. And remember, be bold, be brave, be you, because who else is there to be? I love you all, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.